Hey, welcome to Amp Up Solar Talk. Today we have a very exciting show for you. We have Robbie from the Solar Lab, a channel that is making solar simple by breaking down products, companies, and solar trends. Today we'll be diving into what drives their mission, what they're seeing in the solar space, and what's next. If you're joining live, be sure and drop your questions in the chat. We'd love to hear from you and give Robbie a chance to answer your questions. Robbie, welcome to the show. We're so excited to have you here.
Yeah, thank you so much for having us. We're excited to be here.
Absolutely. We've been waiting a long time for you to be here. So let's kick things off with a bit of background.
Sure.
What inspired you guys to start the Solar Lab, and what gap were you hoping to fill in the solar space?
Okay, this is actually a good question because I feel like we don't actually talk to our audience about this at all. So this is kind of cool. So basically we could start with Cody. Everybody on the channel knows him as Tiny Baby, but he has a business background. So he's always been running his own businesses or a part of a business. And he basically got to a point where he had, sold some businesses or didn't love the thing he was doing. He was consulting for Shop Solar at the time. And he was basically doing like head of marketing stuff there. And they were having some problems with trying to get products out to people. Mainly for like YouTube content or something like that. So he was having a problem where in the YouTube space, there was either people that were kind of like tearing batteries apart and talking over the average person's head, or there was people who were like homesteaders who were doing a good job. And they both served their purpose very well, like both different kinds of creators. But he just wasn't finding like exactly what he was looking for, and like paid advertising was very expensive. And he just like identified this kind of need for content that he couldn't really fill. And then in my situation, I was doing YouTube full time prior to this, building cars and modifying cars and stuff. And I got to a point where I was kind of ready to move on. I needed something new. And Jackery had reached out at one point and they wanted to send me a unit to sponsor a video. And I had no idea what I needed. And I was like, I tried to Google, I couldn't find out what I needed. And I was like, there's nothing here. There's no information on this. So I was like, this is frustrating, but whatever, we're going to move on. I asked Jackery, I'm like, can you just send me whatever I tell you I need? Like, these are my needs, fill the gap. And so they did. And a little bit later on, me and Cody crossed paths and he was telling me his problems with, hey, I wish there was content in this area. And I was like, there's a huge gap. And he identified it and I identified it, especially coming from cars. I'm like, you can go, hey, I want this car part. And there's like 100 people reviewing it or telling you if it's good or bad or whatever. And so we were just like, hey, people want that. Right? They want just like straight information, the language, there's no language barrier. It's just like anybody can like watch a video and just understand what we're saying. And so we just tried it. We just like, let's make a video and see what happens. And we did that. And we've had a hypothesis that that's kind of what people would want. And like we put one video up and it did pretty well. And we were like, there's something here. So that's kind of how we jumped into where we're at now. And that was last January was our first video. So yeah. It's come a long way pretty quickly, but we just want to make it simple for everybody to understand. We want anybody to be able to watch our videos and there's no language barrier. I mean, there's always going to be one when you're talking about something people don't know. But we want there to be like no real language barrier. They can watch it. The average person who's just trying to buy something can go on and be like, hey, this guy told me what he likes, what he doesn't like. He was honest with me.
Right.
I feel comfortable. I'm going to make a decision now. And so the people that were already out there are needed for what they do, right? Like there's the people that are like way in depth, tearing batteries apart. They fill a need. And then the people that are living off grid, they fill a different need. But just like that consumer decision, like the last step basically before they buy, there was just nothing there. And so hopefully we are doing a good job of giving someone something to watch and take an honest feedback from.
Sure. So the honesty and transparency is a really good thing, but just making things simple in simple language, I think, is really resonating with people out there. So we appreciate what you're doing.
Yeah, well, thank you. Yeah, it's like that was a big thing for me was like when I got the Jackery, right? I'm like, I was just watching videos. I'm like, I don't know what they're saying. And it was just like the simplest things probably now. But at the time, I'm like, I don't know what they're saying. And like, I couldn't navigate the space. So yeah, it's just happened that we crossed paths and kind of found this lane. And I don't think either of us saw us doing this, but it's a cool opportunity that we definitely are comfortable and happy to be in.
Yeah, and you're being very successful in it. But I got to backtrack a little bit.
Okay.
Tiny Baby has a name.
Tiny Baby does have a name. It's Cody. We never address. We don't say anybody's names on the channel at all.
No,
we just call him Tiny Baby because he's jokingly short but jacked. So it's just like a funny meme.
Yeah.
He deemed the name himself. People always get mad at me. They're like, stop calling him Tiny Baby. That's rude. I'm like, he gave himself the name.
Yeah.
It wasn't me. And then we try to do that with everybody else. Like we have, we were just talking about Dylan is the new face on our channel, but we call him Health and Safety because his first couple of days, he's like, you guys aren't wearing safety boots. You guys have a health and safety kit around here. And he was just like kind of being jokes inside of the studio. So yeah, we're like, this is your health and safety now. And we just kind of give everybody like little nicknames just to riff on it. It makes everybody happy.
So if you haven't seen the Solar Lab channel, there is a new face and his name is Dylan. And we have Robbie.
Yep.
So now you guys do cover a wide range of products, but you also talk about companies, and you've done a lot of neat things where you call in on companies. But how do you decide which topics or products are worth diving into for your audience?
I think right now we want to be a resource. Like we want to be like a trusted resource. So we're just like starting with, let's just cover everything we can. And as we got into it, we realized that a lot of brands sometimes aren't worth covering. Maybe they make a good product, maybe whatever the case is, but people aren't really going to buy it or whatever. So we go based off of what's popular, brands that we trust that are actually selling a good product, because we've kind of got to the point where it's like you could cover everything, but if we don't even trust the brand or they're clearly doing something, because there's a lot of people in the industry that are just kind of like iffy. We try to stay away from that right now. We're trying to push brands we trust and also what people comment. So if someone says, hey, I want you to review this eco-worthy battery, we're like, okay, let's get the eco-worthy battery and make a review, right?
Right.
So if the people want to see it, we try our best to bring it to them.
Yeah. So you're really listening to your audience.
Yeah, we're doing our best, I think.
Great. I love that. So speaking of your audience, you seem to strike a good balance between homeowners and also installers. So how do you manage that balance in your content?
It's funny. I actually think we don't try to do as much for installers. I think we try to make things more for homeowners or just consumers, like someone that's just trying to buy something. And in that, we hope that it resonates with installers or someone else in the way where if they're going to set something up at your house, they can say, hey, I'm going to give you this FlexBoss. Here's a video you can watch to make you feel comfortable with the products we're going to install. It's in a language you can understand. It's very simple and it's transparent, right? It's like, this isn't someone that we work with. It's just some guy. And so we hope that that resonates both ways, where the installers can take our content and push it. But yeah, as of right now, we just try to focus on helping people make decisions.
And it probably also gives the installers a way to speak to the consumer in a way that helps people understand, because sometimes maybe their language is a little bit higher level.
Yeah, that's what we hope, right? Because a lot of installers and a lot of, I mean, it's just electrical terms, but a lot of people in an industry assume that everyone else knows the language of that industry, and they don't, right? So yeah, that's a big thing for us, is just we treat every video as if brand new people that have never seen us before are going to watch it, and they probably don't understand all the language. And a lot of times knowing the stuff now, we're like, should we say this, or is this like, should we talk a little more highly? And then it's like, no, don't, just keep it simple and make it understandable. So
right. I know a lot of times people will comment on our videos, let's start at the basics.
Yeah.
So
yeah, exactly.
That's really good. We appreciate what you guys do. So in all your reviews, you've seen the good, you've seen the bad, and everything in between. What's something you think solar companies often miss when they're trying to communicate with customers?
I think coming back to the language barrier, I think people, they assume people know the language or they know what they need. I think that's a big thing, is people don't always know what they need. They just know they have a problem, they want to solve it. So a lot of times it's just like they're assuming that you know how many kilowatt hours you're using in your house every day. And people are like, I just want to know if the fridge stays on and I can use my dryer, right? Like they don't know what they're doing. So I think a lot of people get really into the products and what they can do, and they need to just simplify it just a little bit back, just so people really understand it.
It's a good point, because you know, how many times do people often say, I'm using this much energy, or even pay attention to their energy bill, or the energy bill is not broken down by appliances.
Yeah.
So that makes it very difficult.
Yeah. Like you can look at an energy bill and say, okay, I use 30 kilowatt hours, but it's like, what were you using? And they're like, oh, I don't really know. Right. Like, was I using the dishwasher? Do I have a hot tub running? Like, where is that coming from?
Right.
And a lot of people just don't. They
don't
know.
How many were on at the same time?
Yeah. And they don't want to do math too. People are inherently lazy. All of us, speaking for myself included, it's like nobody wants to sit around and be like, oh, I got to add up, you know, the volts and the amps of this and the volts and amps of that, if it doesn't say on it like what the watts, like the usage is. And then you try to tell someone, oh, their fridge isn't constantly running, and then it just goes, they're like, I don't know. I don't want to deal with this.
Right.
So
just will it run it?
Yeah, does it work? That's the main thing. Does it work for what I need?
Right. We do have an audience question. My guy Kirby wants to know, what is your preferred size of solar units for home units, and same for camping? What is your preferred size of solar units for home units, and same for camping?
I would say camping is probably under 2,000, 2,500 watt hours. It's probably all you need, depending on what you're running. If you're just running like a little fridge or lights or whatever, for a home as big as you can go, I think that more is always better. You don't want to run into a situation where you don't have power. And like we just said, homes use a lot. So I think the bigger, the better.
Okay. We also have a question from Greg. What should I get to charge my e-bike?
That's a good question. That depends how big his e-bike is and how frequently he wants to charge it. Probably something smaller than a 1,000 watt hour unit would do fine, unless he has a massive battery. I don't know. Depends on the bike.
Okay. Well, let's get into let's shift into the tech side for a bit.
Sure.
You've covered a ton of systems and products. Are there any trends or technologies that you're seeing gain real traction right now?
I think the high voltage stuff is interesting because it's going to make things smaller. And I think that units and inverters and everything, batteries getting smaller is going to be really key for people getting it in their house. And simplicity. As everything gets better, it gets simpler. You can kind of plug things in and they work. And I think people like that. So anything simple and small, I think, is the way that people want things to go.
So you think all-in-one systems?
Yeah. All-in-one systems, or just even like the fact that like the FlexBoss is significantly smaller than some of the other inverters that were out there. And it's just, especially getting into high voltage, it's like you don't need as much room. So as you can get smaller and smaller inverters, like you look at some of the new grow out inverters and stuff, they're very small. If you can get some really small units, you could have, double the size as what you guys have right here. You could have double the output and storage in the same format. So I think that would be huge for people, right? Especially in smaller living spaces. You just kind of tuck it in and you're good to go.
Right. If you don't have to take up too much footprint, it looks better and you've got more room to do other things.
Exactly.
So nice. We have a question from Solar TM. What's your favorite part about making videos about solar products?
Favorite part about making videos about solar products is honestly just, I like testing things. Cody thinks it's funny, but I really like pushing things to find out where they fail or where their limits are, because a lot of people will advertise, hey, this is a 3,000 watt inverter. It surges to 7,000 watts. And it's like, it doesn't even get past 3,500. And so for me, it's interesting. And I really like the actual testing process the most, I think, and just finding out like, what does it actually do versus what it says it's going to do. And that really helps people make decisions as well, right? Because they're like, oh, it's going to help me do this, this, and this. And then we run it and we're like, it's not. You need to get something different or something bigger or something else. So I think for me, like I've been filming and doing all that for years. I think it's actually like the testing that's probably the most fun.
Yeah. You get to see if they're telling the truth or not.
Yeah, exactly. And it's cool too when you find things that do work, right? It's not always about, oh, is it bad? It's just like this, especially like we've had a couple EG4 products specifically that it's like, they say they will do X and it's like they do way beyond. Like they'll be able to run a 10,000 watt load and then still start our compressor. And we're like, that's insane that it does that. So it's just cool pushing things and finding out where they go.
Very cool. My guy Kirby also wants to know, with all the new brands coming into the mix, what are the key points to consider prior to purchasing?
Support, I think, is huge. I think that you can get a cheap unit, you could save money here, there, and wherever. But if you're saving money and then you have a problem or it breaks or whatever, and you can't get a hold of someone, this is something that we push all the time, is like, you can get a better deal. Always. You can always get a better deal, but can you actually get help if you need it? And sometimes the answer is no. And so a lot of times we say like, hey, you can get this, but there's no support. So just know that, because if you buy it and the minute you take it out of the box, it doesn't work, like, what do you do? Right. So I think that support is huge in that aspect.
So a good thing to look for, support. So one thing I love about your videos is how you guys break down the specs in a way that's actually understandable. And you've addressed that. That's your whole goal and your whole mission. Are there certain specs or features that you think more people should be paying attention to when they're researching solar gear? I
think, like, when it comes to specs, I mean, this is something that we talk about a lot, is like, not necessarily is it the specs. It's kind of like a weird loop back around, but it's more like their needs. I think a lot of people short themselves or they overestimate, which isn't as big of a problem. But a lot of people will look at something and say, hey, I can make it work, right? I can not run this, this, and this, and it'll work. And it's like, you can, but at the end of the day, you're not going to be in love with your system, right? You're going to be unhappy with its limiting capabilities because you shorted yourself. So a lot of times people are trying to save money or whatever their situation is, which I get, but there's other ways to do it. And I think that a big thing people need to pay attention to is what they actually want to use it for, what they're actually going to be running, and how long, and focus on themselves and make sure that they actually meet their own needs. I think that's a huge.
So if they're trying to get into solar,
yeah,
and they are overwhelmed by all the choices, and they're just not quite ready to make that big jump financially, but they're thinking, well, I can make this work because that's what they can afford. What advice would you give to them?
Well, if you're thinking, I guess it depends what you're doing. If you're going with like a traditional solar kit, like some EG4 products, just, I would say start, because you can always get, one battery and add a battery. You can always get an inverter, and then if you need to, get another inverter and parallel them together. So I think that is totally fine. It's more, I think more the problem is like a power station. If they're going to use like an F3800 to back up their home, and they buy it and then they realize like, oh, I can't run everything on the inverter, or the battery doesn't last as long, and I got to buy all these expansion batteries, and that gets a little bit more out of hand. I think traditional kits, I would just say start with what you can afford, even if it's only does half. You know that you can add on.
Easily expandable.
Exactly, something that's like modular, expandable. You can easily just throw more batteries at it, or solar panels, or whatever it is that you're trying to save the money on. It's easy to add those things later.
Yeah, great advice. Great advice. Greg says, why is high voltage better? Is it just because of the room?
I think high voltage, well, I don't know. I don't want to say why it's better, but I think that high voltage is interesting because everything already runs at a higher voltage, right? Like all your stuff runs at 120 volts, and then we're turning 48 into 120. So to me, it's interesting because you're almost skipping the inversion process. So it just seems normal. Like it seems like what it should be. It seems like how things should work. It makes wiring and everything smaller, saves you space, but also like you need less to do it. So it should theoretically make it cheaper as well, which people should like, I would think.
Yeah. So you're starting with the battery being high voltage, your inverters high voltage, but all that other stuff that we don't really ever think about, the wiring and all the components that go with that add up.
Yeah.
That's where the cost really comes in, and that's where it saves you a lot.
Yeah, cost and size too, because you need big, thick wires to run the lower voltage stuff. Where you get high voltage, you get really small, thin wires. You're able to shrink everything that's housing wires at least to down, right? So, yeah, and then also it's going to be more cost effective because it's cheaper wire. There's less of it. So I think it's interesting. I think I'm excited to see where it goes. We've only just kind of started to see it coming around, but it could be an interesting trend.
They talk about it being slightly more efficient.
Yeah.
Not a lot. But...
yeah. Well, if you're if you're already at a higher voltage, there's less to convert, right? So it would make sense to be more efficient.
Yeah, it's pretty logical. So let's talk about batteries. That tech is moving really quickly. From what you've seen, how is battery storage changing the game? Maybe both for off-grid and grid tied.
I think battery storage is interesting because it's giving people the ability to try solar without actually going solar. So they're able to like, hey, put an inverter and some batteries, but no panels. And then they can use that to peak shave, or they can use it as just like battery backup. Power goes out, they're using these like solar tools, but they don't have panels. And so I think that as batteries continue to evolve this way, it just opens the door for people to get into it again, starting, right? If your main concern is like backup power, you can start without panels at all. And you can just charge them and have the batteries ready to go. You could peak shave. I think it's interesting just to see that solar is kind of doable without the panels. And a lot of people, I don't think, fully grasp that yet.
Yeah, let's explain what peak shaving is real quick.
So peak shaving would be, you can use the power in your batteries. Typically, everybody has, a higher rate during the day and a lower rate for electricity during the night. You could charge your batteries with the lower rate from the nighttime. And then during the day, when the rate's higher, you can disperse those batteries, and you're basically using the lower rate 24/7.
Yeah. So using the grid to charge your batteries when the rate is lower, and then using your batteries to power your loads when the rate is higher.
Yep. And then you shave off that difference in your power bill, where it's like you see your on peak and your off peak hours, and everything becomes off peak, which helps. It helps offset the cost of your system at least, right? You're saving some money up front. And it's a no brainer. If you already have the system, you're already going, why not?
Absolutely. So do you think everybody should consider batteries for their system
Yes, I would say so.
if you can afford it,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Or at least start saving up to where you can add.
Yeah.
Everybody I've talked to says they always need more batteries, more batteries, more batteries.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, assuming now most people, for what they're wanting a system for, they're going to want batteries. So, yeah, I would think that most people would benefit greatly from as many batteries as possible.
Yeah. Okay. Well, zooming out a bit from what you're seeing across your channel and comments, where do you think the solar industry is heading over the next 3 to 5 years?
I think it's hard to say. I kind of like we touched on the high voltage stuff. I think
Mhm.
it's going to simplify. I think the big thing is I would like to see it honestly kind of thin out a little bit. I think there's a lot going on in a lot of companies and a lot of um, people trying to break into the space or sell products that aren't the best. And you know, like a facility like you guys have, you're clearly innovating and trying, which is a key component that I don't think a lot of people are doing. So I would like to see maybe less brands and competition and more let's get a good product out. More companies focused on good long lasting products with support, I
Mhm.
think is hopefully what we see over the next little while. I think simplicity and going our higher voltage and all that makes total sense. But I think that even more so, it's just important to really shave off like the negative history that solar's had leading up to now. It's
Mhm.
not always been the best. There's, you know, door-to-door salesman scandals and stuff. And I
Right.
think that people need just something where it's like everyone that goes solar needs a good story for like the next 5 years to get more people on board. I think
Mhm.
that's what's missing. So I think just shaving down some of these companies and letting them kind of dwindle away is hopefully going to help the industry a lot.
Yeah, get rid of some of the negativity.
Yeah, yeah, and people that
Gotcha.
are just trying to make a buck versus people that are genuinely trying to help people who have a problem to solve.
Mhm. That's a great point. So before we wrap up, because our time is up, but what can we look forward to from you guys? Do you have any exciting news to share or something upcoming that we can look forward to from the Solar Lab?
I mean, we're looking forward to growth. As you guys have seen, Dylan is the new personality on the
Mhm.
channel, and we have a couple series that we're finally able to start investing into our own content some more.
Mhm.
So we have some more series, some more faces, some more exciting things coming up on the channel. How much of them we're talking about, I don't entirely know, but we have a lot of stuff that we're reinvesting into to try to just make things simple
Yeah.
for everybody and get content out there to. I mean, right now we're limited to the amount of content that we post, and
Mhm.
there's still tons to tap into. So we want to just keep trying to level up and post as much as possible to help fill all the holes that are out there
Yeah.
that we see.
Well, great. Is there anything else you'd like to share before we go?
No, I think that's everything. I think we're good. Thank you so much for having us.
Well, Robbie, thank you so much for being here, and thanks for sharing your insights. And just it's been great having you on the show and joining us in studio all the way from Canada.
Yeah.
So
Well,
appreciate you having you on and sharing your insights. And for those of you watching, make sure that you check out the Solar Lab. They truly do share great industry insights and product breakdowns that are truly simple and really are valuable to those of you who want to learn about different kinds of products or companies or industry trends. So be sure and check them out. For those of you watching, thanks for joining in. Be sure and follow and subscribe so you don't miss the next episode of Amp Up. And we'll see you right here next time on Amp Up Solar Talk.